Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be looking at the British SAS unit that went rogue to rescue one of their mates. So let's get into it.
The British SAS, or Special Air Service, is one of the world's most elite special forces units, known for their bravery, skill, and precision. But what happens when orders go against their moral code?
So right off the bat, I need to tell you, so the SAS unit, or the SAS period, is actually the unit that we in the RCR most compared ourselves to. The big thing that we always used to say is that the SAS motto is "Who dares wins," and our motto in 1RCR was "We dare." So we've had a lot of respect actually for the SAS for a very, very long time, and they were the people that we were trying to make sure that we were as good as.
On September 19th, 2005, in Basra, Iraq, two British SAS operators were in Iraq on a top-secret mission.
So I think my unit was actually there at that time, or they might have rotated out. They might have been there in 2003, maybe. I was out by this point. I got out in 1998, but my unit was definitely there a couple of times and saw some heavy fighting.
The operators were identified only as Alpha 1 and Alpha 2. The country had been in turmoil since the US-led invasion in 2003, and the British military had been tasked with maintaining order in the southern city of Basra. Basra was originally proclaimed a beacon for post-war Iraq, a model of how to hand over control to the local.
So I'm seeing a bunch of different things here, and I don't know if that's because the commentator here has just put together images from a bunch of different places, or if they're carrying different styles of weapon. Like I saw a number of weapons just a second ago that were very similar to the C7, the M16 style MP. I think it's MP4. Whatever the Americans call it, the 5.56. I'm seeing this. Here's the SA-80, one of the variants of the SA-80. This must be the local police or the local forces of some kind carrying an AK-47 variant with a really interesting sling configuration. But I'm guessing that they've just put these images together, and they're not necessarily germane to the story.
Population, but now it was a hotbed of insurgency.
Yeah, I've heard some stories from some of my friends.
The SAS had spent weeks observing and infiltrating the Iraq.
You look at this, and this is a C8 style carbine with the short barrel. You can tell because his hand pretty much takes up the entire length of the barrel there. So I'm not exactly sure what weapons the SAS uses right now. The rest of it, their load-bearing vests are a little bit interesting to me. Those are kind of similar to the load-bearing vests that our C2 gunners used to carry a long, long time ago. Our load-bearing vests were actually quite different than this. This looks like it's got shotgun shells maybe on it. And I'm guessing these are communications devices. What are these, grenade pouches maybe? And that's your radio there. Carabiner. So, I mean, generally some pretty standard kit, just in different configurations that I'm used to.
Iraqi insurgent groups, which were gradually taking control of the police force that British soldiers were supposed to be working with to restore order. As Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 were finishing their surveillance mission, they were compromised by plainclothes Iraqi policemen. A scuffle ensued, and the SAS operators fired their weapons, wounding an Iraqi policeman. The SAS operators tried to escape, relying on their native garb for protection. But as they were leaving the area, they came upon an Iraqi police checkpoint and decided to try to talk their way out of an increasingly bad situation, but to no avail. They were captured and beaten by corrupt police officers sympathetic to hostile militia groups. The SAS operators stationed in Basra were in shock when they saw their fellow.
Yeah, okay, so I can tell you for absolute certain that everyone in my unit would have reacted in a very similar way. If we found the corrupt police officers had taken our guys, there's nothing that would have stopped us going in to get them. I'm 100% positive of that. I love how they blacked out the dog's face here.
Operators being paraded on Iraqi TV, charged with heinous crimes, and feared for their safety, especially given the brutalities of the factions fighting against the British forces. The likelihood of those operators surviving more than a few days was narrow at best. The SAS commander in charge of...
So I got to question why they're blurring out the faces now, because if these guys had been paraded all over Iraqi television, then their faces are out there. So I think it's at this point it's kind of a gimmick that they're blurring their faces, at least of the guys that were captured.
The unit realized that they needed to be rescued immediately.
Oh yeah.
But his unit was too small, so he requested reinforcements from an SAS detachment 300 miles away. The operators equipped themselves with their gear and readied their submachine guns and C8 carbines before making their way towards...
So that was a C8. Wow. I mean, if this guy is to be believed, submachine guns. Canada, now obviously this isn't Canada, this is the SAS, but Canada doesn't use submachine guns anymore. When I was in and we were working with the British, so Canada had the Browning submachine gun and the Brits had the Sterling submachine gun, which are, for all intents and purposes, exactly the same submachine gun. It's basically just a big tube with an open breech and literally a fixed pin breech block and a spring that just cycles back and forth. Pretty simple weapon and kind of elegant at the same time. But to my knowledge, I mean, other than the C8, which is not a submachine gun, it's a carbine, and generally meant to be used in fact, I'm not even sure we have an automatic setting on it. I honestly can't remember. I'm pretty sure our C-subs... If you guys remember, if there's anyone currently stationed in the Canadian military or anybody who remembers, I know we had safe and we had single shot. Yeah, you know what? I think we did have automatic on it. We just never used it. Like, in fact, I think we were trained not to use it. Anyway.
C-130 that was waiting for them. They eagerly prepared to move into action. However, when the SAS team requested permission from the superiors to launch the rescue mission, they were denied.
Oh God.
The chain of command feared that any rescue attempt would lead to further casualties in a larger conflict with the insurgents. The officials in London were caught off guard.
That would not have gone over well with our guys either. I got to be honest, I'm not sure what we would have done in that situation. I mean, I know every single person would have wanted to do the same thing, go rogue, but I just can't say for sure that we would have. You know what? It would have depended, I think, probably on the sergeant major. If the sergeant major was behind us, we would have gone. But if the sergeant major told us no, I think we would have stayed. Generally, almost every one of our sergeant majors, with one glaring exception, was an extremely well-respected person in 1RCR.
And the response was sluggish. The political climate in newly freed Iraq was unstable. Despite the commander's disbelief at the command, he warned his superior about the perilous situation of leaving the two men in captivity.
Yeah.
However, his plea fell on deaf ears as the general repeatedly overruled him. The commander realized that high command didn't care about the lives of his operators. He was furious, but he also knew that leaving his two people to the wolves was not an option. During that pivotal moment, the commander and his unit were confronted with a critical decision. The commander made the bold choice to disregard the orders. The SAS unit got on that C-130, decided to rescue their
That's
mates
a hard
anyway.
choice to make.
Minutes later, the C-130 took off. There was no going back.
Honestly, I have to tell you, in that situation, if it was me in command, I would tell all of the troops exactly what I was doing. I'd tell them that we were told we couldn't do it. And then I would tell them that that this conversation never happened, and as far as they were concerned, they were simply following my orders, and they had permission to do to mount this rescue, because there's no way I'd take my my troops down with me. But wow.
Once they reached the police station, they were aided by local officials and regular British Army officers. They tried to win the captives' release and resolve the situation peacefully, but every effort to gain permission to get through the gates was ignored. The mob grew around them, forcing them to leave. The armored vehicles were attacked with rocks and Molotov cocktails, and one had to be abandoned by its crew.
See, this has to make me wonder why we're even there. Like, if you don't want us there, we'll leave. I have no problem with leaving. If you want to die under an oppressive regime, beheadings, national beheadings in the soccer stadium, you go right ahead. Have fun, fill your boots. I do not need to die for you if you do not appreciate what I'm doing for you.
The situation was getting worse by the hour. The SAS launched another rescue attempt with helicopter and mechanized infantry support. But this time they weren't so cordial. They slammed right through the walls of the police station with the help of the armored vehicles. The soldiers rushed out of the vehicles and swarmed the compound. The ear-splitting snap of flashbang grenades sounded in the air. Gunshot.
You know, I've actually used this line on somebody once before, and it's appropriate in a situation like this when you're dealing with somebody who's being intractable. And the line is something to the effect of, the only thing that's keeping you alive right now is my self-control. When these guys finally decide it's time to get their people out no matter what, all you being intractable is going to do is kill you. Because I got 100 of my heavily armed closest friends out there, and they're way better trained than yours are.
Shots rang out as militants who raised their guns quickly fell. Upon entering the station, the SAS encountered a few frightened policemen who surrendered by raising their hands and then were disarmed and handcuffed. Initially, the rescue team was unable to locate the captive SAS operators and were concerned.
It's interesting that they keep their... Well, you know what? No, it's actually not that interesting, because my load-bearing vest... So we had mag pouches... Where did we have them? I think we had 4 here, and we had a couple maybe down here. And I used one of the upper mag pouches actually as a pistol holster, essentially. But that almost looks like it's Velcroed on, which is really interesting.
That they had been relocated once more. However, during another search of the compound, the task force discovered the 2 SAS operatives handcuffed inside a bathroom. Although they were bruised and unkempt, they were still alive. The SAS checked them and swiftly moved them out of the compound and into a waiting armored vehicle. The rest of the SAS unit quickly followed, and the armored column turned and sped away from the location and successfully made their way back to base. Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 were transported to a hospital for medical attention. Amidst the chaos, however, there were consequences. About 100 prisoners managed to escape, and the Iraqis demanded reparations for the destruction caused. News of the successful rescue raced up the chain of command, through the Ministry of Defense and eventually into the Prime Minister's office. As news of the incident reached the public, the authorities in charge became aware of their embarrassing situation. The thought of punishing the operators, who had just been praised as heroes for rescuing their fellow British troops in Iraq, was too bitter to even consider.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not true. It's too bitter to consider publicly or quickly, but those guys are screwed. Probably forever. their mates are going to love them, but there are ways that the chain of command can screw you quietly and forever, that you'll just never be able to counter. And if you've got a commanding general that knows your name and hates you, especially if you've disobeyed his orders, you're done.
As a result, the higher-ups opted to authorize the rescue operation, even though they were aware that the mission had already been accomplished. This allowed them to save face and avoid punishing the rescuers, which would have been a bitter pill to swallow, given their heroic efforts. Moreover, the government discovered that if they had attempted to impede the mission, the SAS leadership was ready to resign en masse.
Good.
The British government paid millions of pounds in compensation to the Iraqi government, which included rebuilding the damaged police station. The incident sparked a political debate in the UK about the country's involvement in Iraq.
Yeah, get out.
Many people criticized the government's decision to join the war, and the Basra rescue operation was seen as an example of the dangers and consequences of such actions.
Civilians are stupid.
The SAS unit took a daring risk on that fateful day, staging a mutiny in order to rescue their mates. However, despite the risk, the decision was a calculated one that ultimately proved successful. And the SAS once again lived up to their motto of "Who dares wins."
There you go.
But let us know what you think in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks.
Okay, well, yeah, kind of amazing. I honestly can't tell you for certain how we would have responded in that situation. I absolutely can tell you that we would have 100% wanted to do exactly what those guys did. But my unit was not a unit that was prone to disobedience. And I'm pretty sure, like I said, if the sergeant major had have gotten behind, or the CO or even the OC, if anyone in the chain of command had gotten behind it, we would have followed them. But if our own internal chain of command had said no, oh man, we probably wouldn't have gone. But man, I think it would have killed morale like forever. It might have been the end of the unit. If you're just going to abandon your own troops on the field, if they're going to do it to him, they're going to do it to me too. So I would have been out of that unit faster than you can say Jack Rabbit. In fact, I might have even reconsidered my position in the military at that point, which eventually I did actually after my last deployment to Yugoslavia. Which is a story for another time. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'm really pushing hard to hit 1,000 subscribers. So please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and give a shout out in the comments because I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.